everyone. So our topic today is we will be creating a project using C# Windows Forms, a project that connects to a local database server. So we don't need to install any server, or we don't need to connect to any out external server, because we will be using the built-in database table um, inside Visual Studio. So we will create a Windows Forms application. Now we will name this as um, CRUD operator. So now, why CRUD? CRUD is a shortcut for create, read, update, delete. So we will be doing these functions, and um, basically we will be showing data in and out. Now let's click create. After creating, so we will have a blank form. Now that blank form, um, we'll have that blank form. So it's empty. Now we'll be adding our local database server. So add new item, and under data. So we have here SPD, service-based database. So by default, it will be MDF. So that is an MDF file. It will be saved locally, and so it will be saved in this project. So for now, let us try to add the database because it will take time to load. But while waiting for it to be fully loaded, we will be designing our form. So it's here already. The database one is here already now. We will add our form. We will add we will be designing our form. So our form will have um okay, so we will have text boxes. Text box. Now we have a text box here. So we will have this text ID. Now we will have the font, and the font to be 15 so that it will be bigger, and we will add a label. Okay, so label, the size is 15, and we will be enter employee ID. So it will display enter employee ID. Now after that, we will add another button. The bot sorry, not a label but a button. So the good thing about C# Windows Forms is that, and same with WinForms, actually is you can just drag and drop your controls. So MVC and WPF, same thing. The equivalent of C# Windows Forms is WPF. Now, if you want to create projects in Windows, web, we have C# Web Forms. So, and the equivalent of that is MVC. Now, that's model view and controller. Now, here, for this project, we'll be using WinForms so that it's easier, and it's basically drag and drop, because one of the concerns actually when you're creating a project or you're creating a system is the design. So it's always it really takes time. You need to design your form, um, you need to design your layout. So, and that's why companies actually hire UI UX developers, because you need someone to basically design the system for you. So now, to remove that aspect of designing, we will be using this simple tool, which is, we will be using C# WinForm, because basically this is drag and drop only. So you will not think about designing your own form, having this and that. So this is just simple. And so after adding, we have here text boxes, and after adding those text boxes, we will be adding what you call this, a list view. A list view is, or let me check here. Let's add a grid view instead. So a data grid view is something wherein we can bind our data inside the database. So whenever we encode something, so we will shorten this to find. So find. So now we will shorten that. We will make this shorter and we'll have it like this. So so now we already have our form ready. So you can rename this. This is text ID, this text box. So text name, um, text emp name. This is actually a good practice that to actually put label or to have proper naming convention of your controls, so that if you will be adding or you'll be tracing your controls, it's easier because you know you have proper naming convention. So that is always a good practice. Now here, we are not done with the design yet, so we will have here save button save. So btn, that shortcut for button. Now btn update. Now we'll have this btn delete. So we will have this as um, save update delete. So from CRUD operation, so CRUD sample. So the C in CRUD is, that is to create, that is to insert, so that is save. The update in CRUD, that is update the U. The R in CRUD, that is select, which is read. And the D is delete. So now we have designed our form. This is just a simple form. Now we go back with our database, the MDF. Now here we don't have a table yet, so we will be creating a table. So this is our connection string. Now I don't really use this local database because I always create a database outside the project so that it's easier to maintain. Because imagine if you have 50 projects and you have one database per solution, so it's very hard to maintain. However, for the sake of tutorial, we will be creating this project we'll be creating the database inside the project. So now we have the data connection, database one, we added that. So it's here. But if we want to explore what's inside, we need to use Server Explorer. Now add table, we will be adding a new table. So since um, to actually save time of adding tables, now um, I will just use a script here. So this is a script ready, and we'll be inserting this. So syntax error, there is an error. So DBO employee CRUD operation. So mm, there is something wrong. So okay, so going back, we'll be using manual for this now. So we will build our table. So now our design has employee ID, employee name, salary, and the city. So I'll have here the name, and I will have here so and varchar. So before actually creating a table, you should be familiar already with the data types. So foundation of programming, um, there is already, foundation of data, you will understand that um, there is all different forms of data. So now, so salary, so we will be using varchar. So we can actually just change the data inside um, inside the SQL. So now here is the create script. So we will be changing our table to TBL employees. So that is table employee. Now we have int. This is our ID, which will match this ID. So whenever we're trying to select or we're trying to enter something, so the ID will be our primary key. Now, so by default, it's int. So when we run this, we just click update. So it will try to create or it will try to generate a script wherein the script will be saved and okay, so the script is generated. You can generate the script here. So just update database. So here you will see a message that the database has been updated. So going back to Server Explorer and you try to refresh this one. So here is the table employee. So now we already have our table employee. The another thing that we're going to do is we create um, a connection string. So how are we going to create a connection string? So now, if we're trying to create a connection string, under here already, we already have a connection string here. So we can click what do you call this? So now let's try to build a connection here and properties. So the connection string should be available already. Now there is the connection string. This is the connection string, local DB. So now, since we already have the connection string, we go to right click view code. So now by default, you see here a lot of unused strings. So we'll be adding using system.data.sql client so that we can add the SQL client. Now, the first thing that we're going to do is we will be adding our um, we'll be declaring our SQL connection. So we will have SQL connection. Okay, let me check here. SQL connection. Um, maybe we have using system.data.sql. SQL connection. So one of the great things with Visual Studio is the intelligence. You can actually have the data.sql client. This is what I'm the SQL client is not installed. This is actually quite tricky. We have a scenario here. The SQL client is saying that it needs to be installed. Wherein it should be installed because we were able to add database. So it should be part of Visual Studio, but maybe there is something that and also I've been creating systems here using the same Visual Studio. I'm actually using this is not a developer. This is actually a professional Visual Studio that I have installed in my computer. So this is licensed. Okay, so the NuGet package has been installed, so we will be declaring SQL connection CN. Now we will have SQL command. Why, oh why? False new SQL connection. SQL command. Sorry, we were adding it outside the form, but so SQL command CMD. Okay, so that's the problem, guys. I haven't noticed that we were adding the code outside the form, so you should be mindful of that also. SQL data reader, DA, then SQL data adapter, um, they call this DR. So we already have our connection, our command. So now we will be adding our connection string. So upon load, our connection string is cn is equal to okay, so now we go back with our data sources. We add our we add our data set. Sorry, we already added our data source. So we just copy our connection string. Now this is the connection string. CN. So we will be adding our connection string. So new SQL connection. So now we will be adding our new connection. So this is quite tricky, no? Because okay, so we have other connection string. Now after adding our connection string, we will need to open it. So cn.open. Now after opening it, we will be creating. So I mean we already have okay, so sorry about that. We will be adding this inside the form load so that whenever the project loads, it will be reading the control. So now we will be creating a get employee record. So now the get employee record um, SQL data reader. Okay. So here we have employee ID, employee name, employee salary, employee operation type. So Detected void. This is a store procedure. Instead, we will have select all from TBL employees. So TBL employee, now we have created a data table and we will bind the data table to the grid view. So after that, um, let's try running. So there's no error. Now let's try to call this function inside the data table, inside the what they call this, inside the load. Now I will right click on table employees and show table data, so that we can see what's inside the table. So by default this is empty, so we are trying to add manual data so that we can test. So Kim, so the salary, shall we say 20,000, city San Carlos. So now I have one record. So if I run this, uh, if what I did is correct, I should have one record. So here we have already have one record. So we already have one record added. Now we need to make this work. The save, update, and delete. Okay. So now we already have created a way to show the data. So I will be creating a function. So here the save button save. Now, okay, so we will have here a way to save this. So we will have CMD again. CMD is equal to we will just copy this so that it will be easier for us. So now instead of create, so I will have here insert into table employee. So one way for you to memorizing all this is essential to memorize all the syntax, but I'll be showing you ways on how to do this easier. So now we can actually generate scripts. Okay, so the thing is here we cannot do it locally because you know this um this local database. Actually, the Explorer view is not, I mean, does not support the right-click scripting. So I'll just prepare a code. So, okay, so instead we have just prepared codes. Um, we are using parameters, so we're passing parameters. This is to actually avoid SQL inject. So now, what we're going to do is this one. So first thing that we're going to do is we will be using the save info. So now, if text ID dot text is empty, then we shouldn't be saving this. Also, we will try to add. Okay, so the data multi-line wax car. So let me just check here. Oh, so sorry for that. Okay, so let us check here. So it should be not empty. Else message box that show ID is ID should not be empty. So this will actually display a message that we need to fill up the and we can put text ID dot focus. So let's try. What is this? So let's try. Now we will add two and Keith, uh, employee 2, salary is 15,000, and CT2. Let's try to save. Save. Now we have not, I mean, we cannot say if it's saved or not because we don't have an updater to update this grid view. But let us check if it works. Let's check if the data, uh, we will refresh this. If there is already a new line, meaning it already saved. Okay, so that did not save. So let us try to break this F9, F5. Okay, to actually show if it's saved or not, after saving, we will put here our they get employee record so that we can see an updated value. So let's try to run. So employee 2, salary is 15,000, or let's try to type here employee 2 city. Let's try to save. Break. Now, this is one way of checking if so 2 2 1 5 city. So we will try to execute the query. The query has been executed. Now let's check if see it worked. Employee 2 has been added. So now employee is already working. I mean save is already working. We will be checking update. For us to work with update, we will be enabling first the button find function. So we will be naming this button find, and we will double click this button find. Okay, so we will the query that we used here to generate the information. This is the generate info. We will be using that as a query to find. So now, while doing that, we will be finding ID, where ID is equal to plus text ID dot text. So now, if we run this, we should be getting a filtered ID. So example, why am I only seeing one? So actually there is, okay, so let me check here, okay? Okay, so now we have set our two buttons into hidden, and our find is already working. So whenever the user clicks find, the button update will be visible and the button delete will be visible also. So we will bind update with update, and we will be update info. Now we will bind delete with delete info so that the info will be deleted. So now let's try to run. So here we have one record added, so we will be adding another record. So employee 2, salary is, and the city is city 2. So when I click save, so the employee 2 is added already. Now if I click find, the two buttons are shown and employee 2 is displayed. However, I want to change the city into Mandaue. So when I click update, let me check here why it is not updating. Update info. So let's break here. So when we click update, it's inside already this break. So or ID. So okay. So the thing is, it is not updating because we have not added updates. So whenever we do a command, we will be displaying our get employee record so that our updated record will be displayed. So we will clear records right now. Okay, so we'll be clearing records right now. So basically, this is just a direct SQL query. So this is the R in CRUD, that is select. This is the D in CRUD, which is delete. This is the U in CRUD, which is update, and this is C in CRUD, which is create or to insert. Now let's try. So again, we're using a local database here, so we'll be adding employee 2. So test. Now there might be a configuration here. I need to reset the configuration so that updating directly to the database will actually there is just a slight configuration change here. So test employee, but in a sense this is already working. 15,000 test, save. So 3 employee 3 16,000 Mandawi, 4 which is Marie 18,000 Sunrem, save. So you already have 4. Now if I check 2, find 2, I will be updating employee 2. So I will be changing the test employee 2 into the name is Keith and the salary is 15 and Mandawi. When I click update, okay, Keith is already updated. So if I go with test employee 3, fine, and I change that to Kaiser and the salary is 16 and now we update, so it's Kaiser. And if I go to employee 4 and find and I change the okay, there this is just something that needs fine tuning because what we have here is that we should, when we click here, it should update here. So I will be creating another video for that. So for this we will just be focusing with the CRUD. So update, so it's already updated. Now we'll add another employee 5, Marie 2, and save. So there's already 5 employees. Now if I click 4, find, click 5, find. Now if I want to delete this, I just need to click delete. So see, it's already removed. Now our CRUD operation is already working. So um, basically what we have here is just simple. We have bind the connection using the connection string, and the connection string is just local using local database. Now you can actually use this with your own Visual Studio. Okay, so I hope you learned something and I hope you enjoy watching this video. Thank you.